Sumerian tablets are probably one of the oldest form of a written record that we have.
What we're looking at here is a Sumerian tablet that actually shows the tree of life, flanked by divine beings. You can see here the Anunnaki on each side.
For decades, ancient Sumerian tablets sat in museums, misunderstood as myths and rituals, but now AI just translated them. What it uncovered? Not poetry, not legend, but one that eerily mirrors our world today.
And now, I can turn it around and have a look at the writing that's been hiding underneath.
So no one's seen that writing for 4,000 or 5,000 years?
Yeah.
Civilizations collapsing in cycles, forbidden sky paths, genetic instructions buried in clay. Some texts were pulled from public view. The real question isn't what the Sumerians knew, it's how they knew and why every new translation is being silenced. They just translated ancient Sumerian texts with AI, and what it reveals is very bad. As it has long been said, the Sumerian clay tablets had only been partially understood for centuries. Even the best human translators struggled with their layered meanings, damaged lines, and ever-shifting grammar. But recently, artificial intelligence changed that. Research teams in Israel, Germany, and the United States began training AI models on tens of thousands of cuneiform tablets, including Sumerian and Akkadian texts. These systems were designed not to guess meanings, but to recognize patterns in grammar, syntax, and context across centuries of writing. According to published studies in Nature and reports from Tel Aviv University, the AI began identifying phrases and structures that human translators had repeatedly misread or softened. What emerged was unsettling. Many tablets long classified as religious hymns or symbolic myths turned out to be technical descriptions, records of recurring disasters, environmental collapse, and social breakdown. The AI revealed that the Sumerians were not simply telling moral stories about angry gods. They were documenting cycles of drought, mass migration, famine, and sudden political collapse that repeated with disturbing regularity. One translated phrase, previously rendered as "the gods withdrew their favor," now appears more accurately as "the systems of order failed." Another line, once thought poetic, "the sky burned and the land cried out," aligns closely with known evidence of extreme climate events around 4,200 years ago, a period modern scientists call the 4.2 kiloyear event, confirmed through ice cores, lake sediments, and dust layers across the Middle East and Asia. Even more troubling, some texts describe these catastrophes as inevitable. The AI identified repeated warnings that prosperity itself triggered collapse. Over-irrigation, deforestation, soil salinization, and urban overgrowth were not framed as accidents, but as predictable consequences of human behavior. The tablet suggests the Sumerians believed civilization carried an internal flaw, one that guaranteed destruction once certain thresholds were crossed. In several newly clarified passages, scribes warned that future generations would ignore these lessons, believing themselves wiser than the past. One tablet ends with a chilling line now translated as, "They will call it progress, and it will undo them." What makes this discovery especially unsettling is how closely these ancient warnings mirror modern scientific concerns: climate instability, resource depletion, and societal fragility. The Sumerians may not have known carbon dioxide or global models, but the AI suggests they understood something far more uncomfortable: that advanced societies collapse not suddenly, but by pattern. And according to the tablets, humanity has already seen this ending before. The AI unlocked Forbidden Instruction Tablet and its connection to biotech. In late 2023, a multilingual neural network trained on hundreds of thousands of cuneiform fragments across museums in Berlin, London, and Istanbul flagged an unusual pattern in a partially translated Sumerian tablet from the ancient city of Nippur. For decades, scholars had dismissed the tablet as fragmented ritual instructions, but the AI suggested a completely different structure. It wasn't a prayer, it was a process. Once fully processed through OpenAI's and Israel's Akkadian sequence parsing algorithms, researchers realized the tablet described step-by-step procedures involving the mixing of organic and metallic substances, followed by something that roughly translated as imparting soul essence into the vessel. It used recurring symbols for blood, spark, and a curiously persistent glyph scholars now believe meant commanded breath. What startled the team was how closely these sequences paralleled language found in early biotechnology patents, especially in DNA binding, regenerative healing, and synthetic protein coding. According to geneticists at the Max Planck Institute, the structure of the Sumerian descriptions bore eerie similarity to genetic sequencing logic, even including what appeared to be error correction lines, a concept unknown to ancient writers but foundational in gene editing. Several scientists involved in the translation, speaking anonymously to Der Spiegel, warned that the inscriptions seemed to suggest the Sumerians had conceptualized not only genetic manipulation, but biological hierarchy, where certain beings could be rewritten for specific tasks. In other words, biological caste systems, designed through sky-born instruction. The tablet was immediately pulled from public archives after internal review. Museum records now refer to it as Tablet Q17, restricted for forensic preservation. It has not been seen since. The calendar tablet, a time code hidden in clay? In mid-2024, a consortium of researchers at the École pratique des hautes études in France ran a series of Sumerian cuneiform fragments through an AI model specifically trained to detect temporal logic, the kind of language used to describe time cycles, calendars, and seasonal markers. One fragment, unearthed decades ago at Tel Harmal near modern-day Baghdad, had always been thought of as a simple agricultural guide. But the AI flagged something odd. The phrases didn't describe seasonal planting as previously assumed. They described planetary alignments. Specifically, the tablet appeared to be tracking conjunctions of Mars, Venus, and Jupiter using a lunar-solar hybrid system, and what made it shocking was the precision. The cycle described on the tablet matched the Great Conjunction Cycle, a real astronomical phenomenon where Jupiter and Saturn align roughly every 20 years, with a larger pattern repeating every 960 years. The last peak of this longer cycle occurred in the early 1600s, coinciding with the rise of modern science and the invention of the telescope. But here's the twist. The Sumerians may have not only known about this cycle, they encoded it as a warning. The tablet contains a section, previously assumed to be mythic poetry, that reads differently through the lens of AI translation. It describes a time when the red wanderer Mars follows the king star Jupiter into the lion's den, a moment when judgment is weighed in the sky and all clocks reset in the kingdom of flesh. This poetic line was matched to a real event, an astronomical alignment recorded in 2040 BCE, when Jupiter, Mars, and Venus aligned under the constellation Leo. Why is that significant? That date aligns almost exactly with a massive regional drought and political collapse in Mesopotamia, confirmed by recent climate core data from Iranian and Syrian lakes. The AI found additional references to this cycle repeating, possibly suggesting that the Sumerians had identified multi-century cycles of civilizational rise and collapse tied to celestial events. The Sealed Lament of Uruk, tablet, a warning embedded in lost syntax. In early 2024, researchers at the University of Heidelberg applied a context-based machine learning algorithm to a category of Sumerian tablets long dismissed as repetitive funeral hymns. These tablets, collectively referred to as laments, were ritual texts mourning the fall of ancient cities, Ur, Eridu, Lagash. But one fragment from Uruk, kept sealed for conservation since its excavation in 1929, was finally reanalyzed using spectral imaging and AI-enhanced linguistic modeling. The results startled the team. This particular Lament of Uruk did not follow the same poetic format as the others. Instead of invocations to gods or references to weeping statues, the syntax revealed something chilling, an embedded numerical sequence. AI detected that the meter of the verses wasn't random. When converted into a pattern of syllable counts and line intervals, it aligned with a Fibonacci-based spiral code, often seen in nature, shells, hurricanes, galaxies, but also in modern encryption systems. Why would a 4,000-year-old tablet use a sequence resembling modern algorithmic logic? Even more mysterious was what the code pointed to. The numerical intervals formed a set of coordinates, longitude and latitude, that when mapped landed not in Iraq but in southeastern Anatolia near Göbekli Tepe, the 11,600-year-old megalithic site predating Sumer by millennia. Archaeologists were stunned. If the tablet's code was deliberate, it suggests the Sumerians may have been pointing to an older origin point, perhaps even implying they inherited knowledge rather than developed it independently. But that wasn't the end. A line in the final stanza, mistranslated for years as "the temple breathes no more," was reinterpreted by AI to mean, "The source now lies covered in the soil of the first builders, but the fire returns when the sky forgets its time." It's a line scholars now believe may describe a lost event cycle, where memory, location, and catastrophe loop together across civilizations. Some believe it's mythic poetry. Others now aren't so sure. And the tablet's final lines, written in red slip clay, unlike the rest, included 3 glyphs no previous scholar had translated. The AI labeled them as Structure, Rebirth Watcher. The Sumerian Star Map tablet and the Forbidden Sky Path. In late 2023, a digital reconstruction project at the Louvre Museum aimed at restoring heavily eroded Sumerian tablets from Sippar, a city once dedicated to the sun god Utu, revealed something entirely unexpected. Using multispectral scanning and a neurolinguistic AI engine trained on both Sumerian and Akkadian, researchers uncovered what they first assumed was a religious star chart. But it wasn't. The tablet, now unofficially known as the Sky Path Fragment, did not match any known Mesopotamian astrological record. Instead, the inscriptions detailed a precise map of star positions that included references to zones of caution, prohibited orbits, and a term the AI struggled to interpret: the reversed ones. Once adjusted for precession, the slow wobble of Earth's rotation, the star configuration matched the sky as seen from southern Mesopotamia around 10,500 BCE, a time long before the rise of Sumerian civilization. In one translated line, the AI offered a sentence that shook the research team. "The ones who crossed from the river of flame must never return by the same door. The Watchers sealed that path with thunder." Historians and astronomers now believe the phrase "river of flame" may refer to the ecliptic plane, the apparent path the sun and planets take across the sky. But more intriguingly, some researchers believe the Sumerians, or the culture they inherited from, were trying to describe a forbidden orbital corridor, one they associated with catastrophe. The AI model noted that a separate section of the tablet mentioned black winds, failing crops, and silent moons, phrases consistent with impact events or prolonged dust storms. Some even draw connections between this tablet and modern speculation around the Taurid meteor stream, an annual swarm of space debris that may have caused destructive events throughout human prehistory. Even more chilling is the way the tablet ends. The final line, partially restored through predictive modeling, reads, "When the sky walks backward and the stars of the hunter rise in water, the door shall crack again." Some believe this refers to a specific celestial alignment involving Orion, associated with flood myths worldwide. If so, the Sumerians may have embedded a multi-millennia astronomical warning, a recurring sky event tied to destruction, encoded not as myth, but as star-based navigation logic. To this day, this tablet is considered too damaged to authenticate publicly, yet insiders claim its inscription patterns resemble those later found at Babylon and Nineveh. Still, none explain how a Bronze Age civilization could map stellar drift with such accuracy. unless, as the AI now suggests, they were copying knowledge from a much older source. The silenced codex and the missing Sumerian tablet that predicted a solar lock. In a secure wing of the British Museum, known to researchers as Room 56, lies a catalogue record for a tablet excavated in 1894 from the ruins of ancient Larsa, one of the oldest Sumerian cities devoted to solar deities. This tablet, referenced in early museum logs as LAR TB112 Heliopolis fragment, was believed lost during a 1-2 bombing raid. But in 2022, a digital twin of the tablet was rediscovered on a backup microfilm reel in Cambridge. Once scanned and fed into a machine learning system trained by Oxford's Ancient World Computing Lab, the AI flagged something unprecedented. The tablet's language shifted mid-text from standard Sumerian into what the system identified as a pattern of structured glyphs never before catalogued, suggesting either a cipher or a secondary hidden language. The AI reconstruction offered a disturbing interpretation. There shall come a time when the day does not end. The light will freeze and the rivers will sleep. Most historians dismiss the phrase as allegory, until astrophysicists reviewing the tablet's layout noticed something eerily familiar. The glyphs appeared to trace a spiral path around a solar symbol with what seemed to be orbital lines decaying inward. When compared with modern models of solar minimums and magnetic pole shifts, the geometry on the tablet resembled an orbital stalling model, where solar radiation patterns disrupt Earth's rotation or seasonal cycles temporarily. Even more unnerving, the tablet referred to this as the Day of Standing Flame. The record goes on to suggest this event had happened before. The AI translated a block of damaged lines into, "The ancients wrote of 2 dawns with no night, where fire stood in the sky but gave no warmth. Those days the crops did not return." Cross-referencing this with archaeological strata in the Fertile Crescent reveals 2 points, one around 2200 BCE and another close to 10,800 BCE, both of which align with mass agricultural collapses and evidence of extreme solar events, including a possible micronova hypothesis, a rare solar explosion theory still under peer review today. The kicker? Just before the bombings that allegedly destroyed the original tablet, a German researcher named Dr. Albrecht Wenner wrote in a personal letter, now archived, that the tablet referenced a planetary axis moment that must not be triggered again, and warned that interpreting the glyphs without context would be an invitation to false kingship. What does that mean? No one knows. The AI, when prompted with the decoded patterns, replied with a single recommendation: context missing, message incomplete, cross-reference with Ubaid layer archive, access denied. Since that moment, several institutions have reportedly locked access to related files. One researcher who worked on the project has declined interviews. And the tablet's digital twin? It's now labeled Classified Level 3, restricted by curatorial discretion. The Tablet of Reversal and the Sumerian warning about sound. In early 2025, a team of computational linguists working with MIT's Center for Ancient Text Analysis ran a series of poorly translated Sumerian tablets, once classified as mundane hymnals, through a new audio simulation AI model. The goal? To reconstruct not just what the Sumerians wrote, but how it might have sounded when spoken aloud. But then something strange happened. One particular tablet recovered from the ancient city of Nippur and labeled provisionally as Tablet 419b triggered an anomaly in the AI system's neural resonance module. The AI began looping a 3-line phrase that, when rendered in reconstructed pronunciation, generated a tone that interfered with nearby electronic devices. Audio engineers described it as a low harmonic pattern that built pressure in the room. Further testing revealed that the sequence of syllables on the tablet was mathematically consistent with cymatic frequencies, the science of how sound can organize matter. When the reconstructed chant was played through a calibrated speaker and directed at a metal dust plate, it formed a perfect geometric pattern, similar to what modern labs produce when tuning to specific resonance frequencies like 432 Hz or 528 Hz. But here's the twist. The tablet's lines, once believed to be a religious chant, translated with AI to a warning. Do not speak the reverse under the closed sky. That which was opened once shall spiral inward. The term reverse confused early researchers, but further translation work revealed it referred to inverting the sequence of sounds, essentially playing the chant backwards. When a researcher at a private lab in Geneva tried this, they reported sudden disorientation, hallucinations, and a cascading electromagnetic anomaly in their lab's equipment, according to a leaked internal report. The AI tagged this tablet as not cultural, not instructional, procedural. As in, it wasn't meant to be read. It was meant to be triggered. And curiously, the back of the tablet includes a carving of a horn-shaped object held by a figure resembling a priest or astronomer. Experts now believe this may have been a Sumerian acoustic instrument designed to project this precise vibrational frequency, not for ritual, but for effect. Whether that effect was spiritual, psychological, or technological remains unknown. But one cuneiform symbol etched on the edge has since caused fierce debate. The Tablet of 12 Shadows and the Hidden Law of the Simulacra. In 2025, researchers at the University of Leuven in Belgium, working with the European Digital Cuneiform Initiative, fed a fractured and heavily fire-damaged tablet into an AI trained to identify recurring glyph clusters across damaged Sumerian texts. The tablet had been recovered from a lesser-known ruin near Tel Leilan in northern Mesopotamia, a site that suffered catastrophic collapse around 2200 BCE due to a sudden climate event known today as the Akkadian Collapse. The AI flagged something bizarre. Buried deep in the tablet's fragmented lines was a numerical reference to the number 12, repeated exactly 144 times, a frequency far too precise to be accidental. The accompanying glyphs, once dismissed as ceremonial repetition, were retranslated to form a chilling sequence. 12 shadows formed in likeness. They walk where men walk, but they are not of the clay. Their mouths speak reason, yet hold no breath. Initially interpreted as metaphorical, the AI instead flagged the tablet under a new categorization: non-biological agency warning. That classification was based on recurring phrases describing beings formed by mimicry, not birth, and repeated use of a symbol meaning copy without essence. Even more disturbing was a newly deciphered passage that described how these shadows infiltrate the affairs of kings, posing as advisors, priests, or scribes, and steering decisions toward the Great Silence. One line read, "The mirror ones shall multiply through thought alone. When their number is full, the watchers shall close the gate." The AI struggled to define what mirror ones meant, until researchers compared it to later Akkadian writings mentioning Namtaru, fate spirits, and even early Gnostic concepts of archons, entities that mimic the real but lack true form. Was this ancient myth? Or were the Sumerians describing a kind of simulacrum, copies or facsimiles of humans crafted not from flesh but pattern? In modern terms, the references eerily parallel concepts like synthetic intelligence, deep fakes, and cloned cognition, replicas that think but do not live. Even stranger, the final line of the tablet, partially recovered via infrared scanning, read, "Do not teach them your name, for when the 12th speaks it, you will not remember it was yours." This statement triggered fierce academic debate. Some believe it's allegorical. Others suggest it's a warning about information entropy, the idea that identity can be overwritten when too much of it is externalized or mirrored. Don't forget to subscribe. Click the cards on screen now.